Welcome back. This is Good Morning Trinidad and Tobago on CTV and Talk City 91.1 FM. Joining us now is former Minister of Energy Kevin Ramnarine. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Welcome and congrats on hosting the morning show.
Oh, thank you. I've been trying something. Yeah. Hopefully it works out, right? We want to continue on our discussion on the budget and what the Minister of Finance had announced. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have labeled the budget, I have framed the budget a bipolar budget, because the budget to me had two halves. The first half sounded pretty all right, and the second half was this thing in the tail. The budget has been the budget has not been well received, because a lot of burden was shifted from the government onto the shoulders of the population. And by that, we mean the business community and the energy sector. The Banking Association is not happy. Their taxes have gone up to 35% of their profits, up from 30%. That isn't going to make much of a difference to government revenue. It's probably going to give the government an additional $250 million for the most. The energy sector has been singled out and has been dealt some body blows. I think that the minister attacked the energy sector. In particular, he attacked the multinationals unfairly, and I think that is going to send the wrong signal to their head offices. BP has said that they need a lot more clarity on what was said in the budget on Monday. I find that to be interesting. I would have thought that BP would have had clarity prior to the minister speaking. BP doesn't run a snack it or a rum shop in Trinidad. They run the largest company in Trinidad in terms of tax contribution, investment, and so on. So I would have thought that a level of consultation would have happened with the Energy Chamber, with the Used Car Dealers Association. I am not too sure that has happened. I am not happy with what has happened with the hybrid vehicles. I am of the view that the entire world is moving in the direction of hybrids. Japan, Korea, China, Germany, the US, and so on. And all these countries are giving incentives to their citizens to get hybrid vehicles. So we've kept some incentives on vehicles under 1599 cc's, but we remove incentives for vehicles above 1599 cc's. So that is going to mean that, yes, you could get a hybrid, but it's probably going to be a very small vehicle. Whereas I know you were looking at probably getting an X-Trail or something larger.
I can't even look at getting that. I can't even look at it.
Those are some of my thoughts. I think that the minister is going to find it very difficult to collect the $45 billion that he's looking to collect, because he has predicated the budget on too high a natural gas price. In 2017, he told us that the country realized an average netback gas price of $2 US per MMBTU. He's predicated his budget on a $2.75 price. I don't see how we are going to make that leap in price. We don't have control over a lot of what is gas price, and that's a big jump. So I think that we are continuing in a difficult place. There is going to be some rebound because of natural gas production increasing as a consequence of the much condemned and misunderstood accelerated capital allowances of 2014. We are going to get this benefit, but we condemn the thing that, of course, has given us the benefit. So that's where we are. I think the sentiment out there, I reflect what I've heard from people, what I've read on social media and so on. People feel numb, they feel shell-shocked. The subsidy, we could talk about the subsidy on fuel. I mean, you now have to pay $2.21 US per gallon in Trinidad. That's if you do the conversion from TT dollars per liter to US per gallon. You're paying about $2.21 for gasoline. If you were living in the city of Houston this morning and you were filling up, you'll be paying something like about $2.40 to $2.50. So our gasoline price is now almost on par with what people are paying in the United States. Our diesel price.
But I want to find out, is that fair, despite Trinidad and Tobago being such a producer of natural gas and
Well, you remember Petrotrin, of course, they have cost, and there are costs associated with producing a barrel, a liter of gasoline. They also have to import fuel, and when they import fuel, they pay the international price. Sorry, they import crude oil, and when they import crude oil, they pay the international price for the crude oil. So that for a long while now, everybody has been, all the leading lights in the economic community have been saying we need to wean ourselves off this subsidy. So the minister has done it. So the subsidy is no longer there. I am arguing, however, that if it is that the subsidy is no longer there, then what is the purpose of the Petroleum Production Levy and Subsidy Act of 1974? Because the subsidy didn't drop from the sky. The subsidy is a creature of law. And the subsidy that law was put in place with an intention by Dr. Eric Williams in 1974 to shield the population from the vagaries of the international oil price. So if it is you have removed the subsidy on diesel and super, and you now have a surplus on premium, because if it is your philosophically, if you are saying that we should pay market prices for fuel, well, let's pay market prices for premium. $5.75 per liter for premium, and I'm sure probably you fill up with premium. $5.75 per liter for premium is not the market price. If we were to adjust it to the market price, we would be charging $4.27. So I'm saying what is good for super and diesel should also apply to premium.
Well, the minister would normally, he would probably argue something along the lines that, the average man...
He's making a profit on premium.
Yeah, and the average man doesn't really use premium, mostly super premium, and diesel, and it's probably more for the business owners.
In the whole scheme of things, premium accounts for 3% of all the transportation fuel consumed. The two big giants, of course, would be diesel and super. Most people use either diesel or super. So my recommendation to the government is to repeal the Petroleum Production Levy and Subsidy Act if it is your intention to change the original intention of the act. Yeah. Repeal that and let the market determine what the price is, as is in the first world, where we aspire to be, of course. Having said that, there's a flip side to this entire thing. The movement in the price of diesel from $2.30 to $3.41 is a bit of a leap in one swallow. Yeah. The minister was going on an incremental basis, and then suddenly he just pulled the entire rug from under the country. We have to see what is the impact of that on taxi fares, on the cost of goods and services. Everything in Trinidad, all goods are transported using diesel. So, having said that, we'll wait to see what the impact on inflation is. I was happy with the fact that the government continues to support CNG. So, credit to the government for supporting the CNG initiative. That initiative has been, 1984, Mr. Patrick Manning. When we came into office, we set up a dedicated company, NGC CNG. That company has been doing well, and it continues to do well. I'm also happy that the gas station owners have had some relief in this budget. That was much needed. And therefore, that's a good thing that the retail margin for the gas station owners, because many gas stations, you could probably look around Trinidad, many gas stations, especially in the rural areas like Princestown and Sangre Grande and so on, have closed. So that's a good thing. But coming back to the whole issue of the subsidy, I think that we should, in removing the subsidy, leave the alternatives. Now, gasoline is expensive now. So let's have some alternative for the population. Hybrids. So we have hybrids in place with no taxes. You've now chopped off half of that. And of course, we have CNG. So perhaps you're going to see a migration towards CNG. Certainly, when you look at the economics, and I'm a great fan of CNG, so forgive me for openly promoting CNG. When you look at the economics now of, if you live San Fernando and you drive to Port of Spain every day, it makes really good sense to either get a hybrid vehicle or a CNG vehicle.
And
The choice is yours.
And I can attest to that because I actually have one of those electric hybrid vehicles and it is fuel efficient.
Which one you have? You have a Prius? Or
And why would you assume it's a Prius?
no, I don't know. Do you have what? An X-Trail hybrid?
No, I don't have an X-Trail. I have a Prius.
Oh, you have a Prius? No, most Prius is the most popular hybrid, right?
It is.
In fact, under my watch, the Ministry of Energy bought a Prius, and it works well. And we also bought the Camry, but the Camry is a 2.5 liter engine, so that wouldn't qualify for the tax exemptions and so on. But certainly now, economics drives decision making. Human beings' behavior is influenced by economics. Your choice, your decision making, influenced by economics. So I'm definitely now seeing that the CNG revolution is going to go forward. One of the obstacles to CNG in the past has always been the cheap price of gasoline. Mm-hmm. The incentive wasn't there for people to switch because, why should I switch and lose half my trunk when gasoline is so cheap? Now gasoline is not so cheap. So in people's mind, well, I should switch and I don't mind losing 1/3 of my trunk because not so much, the tank doesn't take up so much space.
Prius has a lot of space.
Very good. You're not advertising here for...
no, I'm not advertising, but I'm just giving an
Toyota.
example of a vehicle that, has space and is fuel efficient.
And it's also, when the battery comes on, you could tell the country what is very silent.
Actually, it is.
It is very silent
very,
when
very
the battery
silent.
comes on. So the world is heading in that direction of CNG, of hybrids, of electric cars, and there are a few electric cars in Trinidad. You see the Tesla driving through Woodbrook and so on from time to time, and it's very impressive. I've gotten a little tour of the Tesla in Trinidad myself. So I think that's the direction the world is headed in, and I was a little bit disappointed with the removal of the tax exemptions on hybrids greater than $15.99. It now means that the popular X-Trail hybrid is no longer tax-free. But all the same, you can't stop the march of the world economy towards a green economy, towards a low-carbon economy. We have to be part of that trend.
Yeah, and it is also part of the government's Vision 2030. We were just chatting about that with Dinesh Raghu from the Ministry of Planning a short while ago, and he spoke about the need to change a culture probably of people when it comes to subsidies, because it is something that we may not be able to maintain for a long time.
Well, if you want to change culture, one of the surest ways to change culture is to change price in an economy. So if tomorrow the price of doubles were to quadruple, demand for doubles would fall. If you want to change people's choice, decision making, change price. So Vision 2030, or whatever it may be called now, Vision 2030, is fantastic. That's good. It's good that the government has a vision and a plan. But the weak point, the Achilles heel in Trinidad and Tobago has always been the big I word, implementation. Yeah. Implementation. I want to say this morning that we as a country need to, all governments, and even more so now, have to work with the private sector. Private sector has latent capital, they have latent talent, and they have somebody has to mobilize the private sector and motivate the private sector. And I don't think now is the time to be attacking the business community. We talked about Lee Kuan Yew, your previous guest, Mr. Raghu, invoked the name Lee Kuan Yew, one of the greatest leaders in the history of Asia, took his country from being a mudflat into being a metropolis in the space of 30 years. 1965 to 1990, Singapore went from third world to first world. They didn't do that by licking up the business community. They didn't do that by making the business community look like a bogeyman. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have to empower the private sector to help us lift the economy. The state has to step back from business. Whenever the state is involved in business, all over the world, not just Trinidad, you're going to have levels of inefficiency creeping into business. So if we want to follow the Singapore model, culture has to change. Singaporeans are very disciplined and hardworking people. Right?
Trinidadians are working too.
Singaporeans are noted all over the world for being hardworking. Singaporeans are also very clean people. When you go, I've not been to Singapore, but I understand Singapore is a very clean place. I've been to Japan. Japan is spotless. You can't see a piece of litter anywhere in Japan. So I think those are some of the cultural changes. The environment is going to be a huge theme in the 2020 general election. Whoever is presenting themselves to be the next government of Trinidad and Tobago has to talk about recycling. We cannot have an economy at 17 to 20,000 US per capita and not have a recycling industry in this country. We are generating tons and tons and tons of plastic waste, of bottles, of tires. We now hear about the environmental tax on tires. I want to see how that's going to be implemented. So I hope it's just not one way to collect revenue, but we would like to see, we have 830,000 vehicles on the road. Every one of those vehicles, as far as one could assume, has 4 tires. So we're talking about 3.4 million tires right now on the road. And if you assume that everybody is changing at least 1 tire per year, you're looking at almost 700,000 tires being disposed of every year. Where are those tires going? Into landfills, into rivers, they're causing floods. We should have an industry in Trinidad and Tobago to break those tires up and to export the chipped up tires and the steel and so on. So plastic bottles, what is happening to the beverage containers bill? When we have a flood in Port of Spain, I'm sure everybody now is familiar with Port of Spain flooding. You look at what is one of the root causes of the floods, and it's plastic bottles.
Yeah. And you mentioned the tires. I know SwimCall is in support, and I believe it was last year sometime they were working to implement a new recycling model. So you never know, that might come on board. That is former Energy Minister Kevin Ramnarine speaking with us, giving us his thoughts on the budget presentation. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Ramnarine.